So I've had some time to think about the concept of being GOATed. You hear recently that someone is the greatest of all time, and the whole perception is that such an individual has exceptional capabilities or output that far exceeds anything that we have ever seen on earth across all dispensations and epochs. For me, I think this is a myth, and let me explain why.
I've been dreaming on in my head like I've seen it. A life worth living is a life with meaning.
To start off this conversation, I would like to borrow a concept in finance where amounts in the past and amounts to be spent in the future are discounted to the present value. So usually there's some sort of discounting calculation that is done to actually factor in lots of things, depreciation, inflation. We factor in so many other external factors in arriving at their present value calculations. There's a whole mathematical equation for all these things, but I will not bore you with all those calculations. There's always has to be some discounting calculation that has to be applied to the amount in question in order to arrive at a true present day value. In extending or extrapolating the whole concept of greatest of all time, we need to really think deeply whether someone who exhibits some form of extraordinary ability now is truly the greatest of all time. We have seen in the realm of business, for example, that Bill Gates or Mark Zuckerberg or Elon Musk, some newspapers or articles are touting them as the greatest of all time. We kind of think about greatest of all time only considering our dispensation. Yet what we actually mean is that this individual that we are celebrating today transcends other epochs or other times as well. So my question actually is, if $5 million today does not possess the same value as $5 million in 1920, how can we say that someone who has extraordinary abilities today has an ability that transcends every other ability that existed in 1920? Like, what exactly is the discounting value that we are using to measure the greatest of all time? Because so long as we say time, it means that we are also factoring in other extenuating factors in calculating or arriving at this decision. So is the greatest of all time a myth? And if it is not a myth, then how are we arriving at this? Is it an anecdotal proclamation to kind of tag an individual or a group of individuals as greatest of all time? I don't have an answer, but just want to provoke your thinking when next you use this term. From my point of view, we need to really take lots of things into consideration. So let's take the realm of football. The rules of football has changed. The style of football has changed. The expectations of the stakeholders has also changed. And so an individual being exceptionally good in today's term, can that person really be considered the greatest of all time or the greatest of our time? I mean, in my perspective, I think the best we can do is to say the greatest of our time. But to say the greatest of all time means that, okay, so what discounting values or factors are we using to discount the expectations that happened in 1910 versus now? Or to discount, for example, the rules. There were times where the offside rule had a different feel than we have now. So the question that I always have when people say that a football, prodigy or virtuoso in the musical arena is the greatest of all time, I don't know, it kind of sounds weird to me, because if it's all time, then you should have some methodology or some formula that kind of either discounts their talent now and to be able to compare with the talent that existed in 1830 and vice versa. From my point of view, I think it should be good G.O.A.T, greatest of our time, because that is the best we can do. We can only assess the person who has exceptional qualities or exceptional capabilities and talent within the spectrum of our time. New technologies in the aerodynamics of the football did not exist in 1810. The kind of boots that these footballers have now, right, it's not exactly the same. It definitely gives them an upper hand, an edge over a footballer who was playing in the 1736. So definitely, Cristiano Ronaldo and Messi are, in my point of view, the greatest of our time. They may have the best goal scoring abilities. They may have scored the most goals in all the leagues, but yet the leagues are also different. The leagues we have today are not the same leagues that pre-existed the era of FIFA. So the rules were different, the expectations were different, the sponsorship was different, the technology was different. So when next you think about using the title greatest of all time on an individual, think about it. Is the person really the GOAT or the GOAT? Is he the greatest of all time or the greatest of our time? I don't know. I don't have the answers, but yeah, just think about it. I'll catch you in the next one.
I've been dreaming on in my head like I've seen it. A life worth living is a life with